Kokomi is like the fine wine of Genshin Impact, and seeing as she's getting a rerun very soon, I wanted to make this video talking about why you should pull for her, some misconceptions surrounding her kit, and maybe show some Spiral Abyss in the background. This is just a Kokomi mains advice towards other Kokomi mains, or future Kokomi mains, if you plan on pulling for her. So, without further ado, let's talk about everyone's favorite beta fish. Now, before I spout some nonsense to you, I want to talk about what makes me so qualified to educate you on my favorite fish with legs. So, here are her stats in the background. She's Friendship 10 with 39k HP. She's C6 R5. I originally had her C0 and R1, but pulled the rest before her banner ended because I enjoyed using her so much. And she's currently using the 4-piece Ocean Hued Clam set. So my Kokomi is pretty well invested in. Like, I mean, I could have a little bit more HP. It could have over 40k, but it is what it is. And as I'm sure you noticed, she only has a 130 energy recharge, which you might think is pretty low. However, she really doesn't need that much energy recharge. I think that's a pretty big misconception. If you pair her with a good hydro battery like Xingqiu, then he kind of keeps he can provide like half of the energy that she needs just with one skill use. And if you have him on Sack Sword, that's pretty much her entire burst right there. Almost. And then putting any of her weapon putting any like decent weapon on her, like the prototype Amber is really good for her HP percent, energy recharge, and a little bit of healing. The Oathsworn Eye is really good for her because of just how much energy recharge it gives her. You put an Oathsworn Eye on her, you get a little bit of attack percent, and you get all the energy recharge you're ever going to need. So then you could spec full HP percent and like attack percent or elemental mastery or however you want to build her. You don't have to worry about energy recharge. Or her signature weapon, the Everlasting Moonglow, it does give her a little bit of energy recharge, not as much as the other options, but I mean, you also get more damage from the Everlasting Moonglow, but not that much. So that will lead me into my next point, the Everlasting Moonglow, which, yeah, it gives her more damage, but as I mentioned before, you do lose some energy recharge. So I wouldn't really recommend it because of how expensive it is to get a signature weapon or pull for a weapon banner, especially if you get unlucky. Unless you're a whale, or you can make up a decent amount of the energy recharge from her artifacts. Like, let's say you're pulling for Raiden Shogun's weapon and you manage to get a donut. It is her best in slot in terms of damage, but even then, it only makes like a 10 or 15% difference in her overall damage. So, like, the free to play options are still, they can still hold up. But if you are pulling for Raiden Shogun's weapon and you accidentally get an Everlasting Moonglow, it's really not the end of the world. So let's address the elephant in the room. I'm talking about her crit rate. A lot of people think that because she can't crit, she's bad. And those people are soy boy smooth brains who lack the wrinkles and folds it takes to enjoy this character. Jokes aside, though, she has such high HP scaling that she really doesn't need to crit. Now, I'm not a numbers guy that factors in everything like time between attacks and time spent on the battlefield, but my Eula with a 60 to 130 crit ratio and talent level 7 for normal attacks is hitting for like 10k autos on a crit, whereas my Kokomi hits for 12 to 15k autos in her burst. So you can honestly treat her HP scaling in her burst as her crit ratio. It's almost like her elemental burst gives her a 100% crit rate. Like, it's insane. And without having to worry about crit rate and crit damage, she actually becomes an extremely easy character to build without needing thousands of resin to get a fairly decent set. Luck depending, of course. That and her free weapons, such as the Oathsworn Eye and the prototype Amber, make her even more valuable to free to play players and light spenders. But all that talk about how she helps shrimps is boring me. So let's descend into whale territory and talk about her constellations. So she's actually a pretty cheap character in terms of like constellations if you buy into constellations to optimize her kit, which I don't recommend, but if you do, it does take like a shitload of resources to really build a character. So if you wanted to save some resources and instead level up some characters, then that's completely okay. But out of all of her constellations, her C1 is easily the best. It essentially gives her a fourth hit to her combo, and a pretty hard hitting one at that. It's like a third of her HP, pretty much. So for my Kokomi, it hits about the same damage as her regular autos. So it just results in a huge increase in damage. Her next constellation, C2, is meh. It's kind of useful if she's supporting a squishy main DPS like Ganyu, but it's not necessary. If you're playing her as a support and you throw down the jellyfish, you can kind of face tank some stuff with like a squishy main DPS, because every 2 seconds it'll pulse and it'll fully heal them after they take a hard hit. But yeah, it's not really as good as her C1. Her C4 is her next big power boost, but I say big in quotation marks because it's honestly pretty mediocre compared to the power boost of her C1. It allows you to build like 5 or 10% less energy recharge into her kit, and her attack speed buff allows her to get an extra full combo string off, which is further buffed by her C1. I think you can get 15 attacks off if you're just, slinging attacks with that 10% attack speed buff. But yeah, it's not C1, so I wouldn't waste money on it. Now, her C6, the thing that you need to spend an estimated $1,000 to get, yeah, it kind of sucks. It's a decent damage boost if you aren't using 4-piece Heart Adepts. So the 40% is nice, but it's no C6 Eula or C6 Yaimiko or C2 Raiden Shogun or even Kokomi C1. So if you're going to pull for constellations, or if you already have her and you really enjoy her and you do want to pull for a constellation, her C1 is easily her best. But I think you guys, if you have her, you guys already know that. So I think she'll make a really good driver for your squishy off-field characters like Xingqiu, Xiangling, and Fischl, with the amount of HP and healing that she provides. And she's arguably better than Child in this regard, because while Child deals more damage, he's also squishy and could die easily. But Kokomi, on the other hand, is thick with 2 C's. And I'm talking about that juicy, painfully large health bar that she's in possession of. Because she's a comfort character, much like Zhongli. But instead of providing the almighty bulwark that can block just about everything except some good dogs, bathwater lizards, and a Chad light domain cleric, she gives your party access to the tears of her haters that can heal any wound in an instant, no matter how dire. Unless they're dead. Hater tears can't bring the dead back to life. But I think that about wraps it up. I want to keep the video fairly short. So if you like Kokomi and you plan on pulling for her rerun, leave a like on the video. If you want to see Kokomi crit, then maybe consider subscribing, because I might have some plans in the works, maybe a month down the line. And let me know if you plan on pulling for Kokomi during her rerun in the comment section below. But I think that about wraps it up. Oh, one last thing before I go. It has come to my attention that some Kokomi devotees are bullying and gatekeeping the character. And as the self-proclaimed god of Kokomi, Hydro Jesus, and the holy negative crit rate spirit, I must say that this behavior is unacceptable. After all, we aren't Kuching mains. We should be welcoming new players with open arms to grow our Coca cult. So, to combat my ornery school of fish, I gift anyone who watches this far into the video and plans on pulling for her a Kokomane pass. With this pass, you can main Kokomi or just use Kokomi, and you are granted my divine protection, and may their insults flow over you like water.